There we go. Okay.
Good. So, yeah, quite interesting. You've been watching a few recordings, and how do you feel you are in terms of realization?
You know, I feel like I am so joyful a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like I just feel this total spaciousness
Hmm.
and this great excitement about life. And it feels like that's probably when I'm in my awareness, in that full awareness. And I've gotten to where when I have these thoughts come up, I can kind of detach from them and realize that, that's not true. That's just some feed, that's going through my
Sure,
brain.
sure.
Where I used to like, oh, that was me, and that's who I am, those thoughts. So I've detached from that. So I don't know if where I am exactly, but and I don't even know how I first learned about you, but I've just been very inspired. I've come to some of the group meetings on Sundays, or I
Good.
think it's on Sunday when you do those,
Yes.
once a month. I've been to a couple of those. And then I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can do a personal session. So anyway, here we are, and I am just thrilled. I was very excited, also aware of a little bit of nervousness. Like, is there a part of me that wants to hold on to, that self, that little self, I guess, whatever. So yeah,
Well,
and I've been.
fortunately,
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, fortunately, there's no little self to hang on to. It's only the thought stream which creates the sense of there being a little self. So th there isn't anything. One of the invitations people have is to feel as though they're going to lose their little self, their little identity, and it could be a bit frightening. But actually, everyone is already fully in their true infinite nature. And the way you describe things is really good, actually. There's just one little thing which we can have a look at in a moment. But sorry, I interrupted you. So was there something you wanted to say?
Um, I don't remember. It must not have been too important. It might have been something like I have been interested in awakening for so long. I've been a student of A Course in Miracles.
Hmm.
That's kind of my
Yes,
my background. Although
yes,
I
good.
grew up in a preacher's family, where it was the old story about
Yes,
all that.
yes.
So I did have a little overcoming to do there. Or no, I didn't. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's like I can claim that, or I can just claim my true nature. And I feel
Exactly.
that I am more and more. Like when I was a kid, I remember I had a dream, or it seemed so real. Like I was going off and being this true nature, this bigger thing. And I always had the decision, do I want to come back? Come back
Mm.
to this. I mean, this is when I was really little. I don't have that anymore, but I had these dreams. So I think I've been somewhat aware of this forever. Well, obviously it's who I really am. So of course I'd be aware of it, but you know, it's been a fascination of mine and a love of mine, I guess, forever.
Well, experientially, it was there from the outset for you, and that's yeah, fascinating, really, because that's one's natural beingness, and it is only the conditioning of the world which puts us into the option of the personal realm. But it's great that you can recall that. That's very, yeah, really interesting. It's true, actually, of most people I speak with, because really, for there to be realization, it's because on some level we kind of bring it into this experience with us, and it's so it isn't something new. It's just a realization it's of what's always been the case. But they're just sometimes there are just one or two little things to just see through, and the as you were just describing things at the beginning of the conversation, um, have you read Rhonda Byrne's book?
Which one? I've read, I think both. I don't know how many books she's written, but I've
Yes.
read a couple ones. I've read the one, well, in fact, maybe that's how I heard about you, perhaps. The Greatest Secret. I have read that
Yes, you read
one.
that
And The
one. Yeah.
Secret. Yeah.
I thought you may have done
Yeah.
because um, the way Rhonda talks about awareness, she makes it seem as though it's a kind of heightened awareness or a heightened state. And what you're able to experience is you're able to experience in a heightened way, and you can consciously create the basis on which that can happen because you can see through the invitations, you realize they're not yours, and then the natural openness of your true nature is just present, and then that can be experienced directly. But that's really the only little thing that I'd like to say, which is that one's awareness is the awareness which is aware of everything. So even prior to realization and prior to um, having any kind of spiritual seeking, for everyone, there is only impersonal, effortless awareness, which is knowing everything. It's just that it's our attention's diverted from that into the personal realm to make it appear as though awareness is personal to us when it never is. But all I would say is that you have you have the ability to access and experience in a deeper way because you have that capability. You've had it all your life, really. But it's just that the awareness that you truly are is present through all experiences. So even if there are invitations being delivered, um, the infinite impersonal awareness you are is what is knowing those experiences. So I just wanted to mention that really because what the dualistic realm does, it tries to make it appear as though you're not quite there because it likes the seeking process to continue
Yeah.
when actually there is no further seeking required because the awareness that you are is already fully aware, fully operational. It's actually just that you have a greater range of experiences available. So there can be experiences in the human realm, quite normal human experiences, and also because of the spiritual dimension, there are deeper spiritual experiences as well. So it's quite good to know that because it means that you can fully let go of the idea that you're not completely there and there's something more required to try to stabilize this sort of heightened awareness when actually the awareness you are is already fully present because awareness is actually it's neutral, it's non-conceptual, and it's the awareness which is aware of everything. So the awareness is unchanging, but the forms appearing are constantly changing. So so anything which changes, so if there are forms which come and go, so there are subtle experiences we have. So we can have experiences of silence or peace or expansion or bliss or various subtle capabilities. But the awareness aware of them never changes. So there could be awareness of drinking a cup of tea, and there could be awareness of infinite, timeless, immortal bliss. The awareness knowing both of those experiences is the same and it's unchanging. And that's
Yeah.
what you always remain as.
That's so good to know and to have that reinforced because it is tempting for me to think, oh, those blissful moments, which are more and more and more,
Mm.
that's what I'm going for. And to
Yes,
recognize that no, all of this is beautiful and perfect,
yes,
exactly how it is. So, yes, thank you for that reminder. Yes, I do sometimes, and that's like a judging, like, oh, this is good, this isn't. And I know judgment always blocks that. Well, blocks that bliss or what.
well, really, the experiences will continue to expand and develop. It's just that the dualistic game is trying to keep you engaged in some way. So it's trying to keep your attention and your energy. So so when you so when you feel as though there's something missing, then there can be a degree of seeking and a degree of comparison and a feeling that there are certain experiences which are closer to your true nature and then other ones which are a bit further away. But the solution in allowing unity is in actually seeing that the awareness is constant and the experiences can come and go, but actually what you truly are is permanent and is the foundation of all experience. So when you know that, it actually puts an end to the dualistic um, component, and then the energy which previously was activating the dualistic realm and keeping you engaged becomes available in terms of the potential of much more heightened experiences. So what you find is those heightened experiences do increase, but they increase as a result of withdrawing attention from the dualistic realm, rather than saying, "Oh, this is my true nature. Oh, I've just fallen back into the personal mode," or and it's like that really.
Hmm.
But the personal mode is something which is still fully available, but we can play with that more because the way you describe things, Pam, it's obvious that there is access to a much more expansive way of experiencing for most of the time, and that's an option for you. So the tendencies and the invitations into the human realm, into preoccupation with any lower frequency experiences, is something that you're pretty adept at declining.
Yes, I would say that's true. Yes.
Good, fantastic, fantastic. So there doesn't need to be any doubt about realization because it is already fully available to you. What can happen though is you realize that actually in the human realm, well, when the human realm's available, there's a range of experiences available, which is where you can experience fully as impersonal, effortless, infinite awareness and beingness, or you can enter into the personal realm on your terms because you're the sovereign being. So the human realm can be on your terms rather than feeling as though you're subject to the human realm and you have to sort of navigate through that. And so all of the content in terms of personal experience is still available, but it's just that you're more selective in the way you experience that. So being with people that you love spending time with, anything which creates a feeling of expansiveness will be just much more enlivening, really. And so experiences which put you into a more contracted state, you'll probably cease to entertain those.
Yes, that sounds good. I I do have what I call like my possibility posse. That's just what I named it. It's a group of people, and we get together and we talk about this stuff, which is a
Wonderful.
real gift and joy. And the energy I feel in those situations, I feel like I bring a lot to it, but I also feel that I get a lot.
Yes.
But again, that's a little bit kind of into that, oh, that's that heightened state I want to go to, what you were saying. And that's where I like to totally embrace or,
Well, that's brilliant. It's
yeah,
really good to have a group like that where there's compatibility because if it was a group where there were conflicting interests or conflicting views, you wouldn't feel such a state of expansiveness. But you're obviously a very compatible group, and so it's a shared experience because there's the magnification in terms of experience because you're together in a group, but also there's the opportunity for each of you to contribute, and so that's brilliant. Actually, that's how life should be, much more.
agreed. Agreed. And it feels like it doesn't matter really even what we say. There's just this energy. It's
Yes.
hard to explain it. I mean, I guess true realization, again, I'm trying to use these terms. It's like words can't describe it. It's just not something to put into
Mm,
words. But
mm.
anyway, so it doesn't even matter. It's just this feeling. I don't know, but
Yes,
I really love it and I'm drawn to that. And I think, why can't I live like that all the time? And for the most part I do, but that just
yeah,
always up levels it, I guess, a little
yes.
bit.
Is it
And
a group of ladies
yeah.
exclusively?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
that's
some guys too. It's a group of about, oh, I don't know, anywhere from 6 to 10, that get
fantastic.
together. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, actually, what you're describing is functioning from the body of wisdom, which is effortless being. And obviously, everyone in that group has that capability. But it's really with with spiritual practices and with the Course in Miracles, there's lots of great material in the Course in Miracles, and it actually makes much more sense when there's realization because you can see everything that is of true value, and then aspects which may not be relevant to you on a personal level, you can, um, you don't need to take so much notice of them. But um, the 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 way it is for everyone, everyone actually remains as attributeless awareness, which is prior to form. And then, are you familiar with the koshas, Pam?
I've heard you talk about them and I Googled them the other day because I heard you talk about them. So I kind of have an idea of what
Yes.
they're like.
Well, it's really just that there are there are five filters or five options of experience, which they they emerge from subtle to gross. So the most subtle one is the body of bliss, which is just where there is awareness aware of bliss. In attribute awareness, it's just awareness aware of awareness. And then the second kosher is the body of wisdom, which is effortless being. So effortless being really is where there is just awareness of all forms appearing equally and effortlessly, where there's no judgment, no comparison. It's just the simplicity of what's arising in the moment. And so that's really where the group experience is, because everyone is able to experience from that level. So there's a feeling of unity, there's a feeling of love, a feeling of expansion, and it's non-judgmental. So people can say things, but there's no one really monitoring and sort of putting anyone right and saying, oh, well, it isn't like this, or it is. It's
Right.
it's more open, really. So that's
Mhm.
that's very good. And then the remaining koshas, the three dualistic ones, are the mental, emotional, and physical realms, and they're the ones which we're conditioned to utilize primarily in the human realm. So the education system, um, the religions, entertainment, um, most aspects of the human realm are actually designed to put us into the dualistic koshas because they require an energetic investment, and they can be quite draining. But your group is really good because there is effortless being, but it's quite good to know that it's good to know what it is. Like you experience it directly, but it's good to know what it is, knowing that it's always available, and knowing what it isn't, because the mind, for instance, is a dualistic instrument, so that tends to be used for things like comparison or judgment or entertaining concepts. But the natural human experience really should be conducted from effortless being. It's just that we're living in a kind of inverted age at the moment, and so most humans are experiencing primarily on a personal level, and even the sort of a conventional version of the koshas, if you look it up, say on Google, it actually gives an inverted explanation of what the koshas are. It says that the first kosha is the physical body, and then the emotional body, and then the mental body, then the body of wisdom and the body of bliss. But that's actually a distortion because it makes it appear as though we are primarily a physical entity, and that entity has thoughts and emotions. But by doing various practices like yoga, meditation, pranayama, various things, we can get back to our true nature, which is at the other end. But actually, it's a little game of hide and seek because we are already in our true infinite nature, which is the foundation, and the koshas emerge from subtle to gross. So we experience infinite bliss first, and then we experience effortless being, the body of wisdom, and then the physical body is actually the outermost kosha.
You know, when you're saying that, that is such an important thing because we start with that. And I think that's why I've been drawn to you because it's like that is the truth. That is it. Yet everybody thinks they're down here and they're, building up. So I
Yes.
love that idea of starting there and knowing that we're there. I mean, you
Yes.
were like, no if, ands, or buts. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I love that.
Great.
So anyway, thank you. Yes, for because I never thought of that way. Because yeah, I think I did see it when I looked it up. Not that I thought a lot about the coaches, but coachers, however you say
Coaches,
it.
yeah.
But yes, I love that idea. That's if we start there and everybody's starting in the opposite, and we're not really starting because we're already there. So anyway, that's
Yes.
that's a good awareness for me. Thank you for that.
Well, it simplifies everything because it
Yeah,
makes you realize that impersonal, effortless, timeless, indestructible being is inescapable. It's the only option. We can't really step into the personal realm. We can have this virtual reality experience. Impersonal awareness can look through the eyes and it can experience on the human level using various filters and the sort of technology of the physical body, which is like a virtual reality suit. But but it just simplifies everything because even in terms of things like therapy or religious practices, um, when they're being promoted as a means to get back to your true nature, you know that it's complete nonsense because we are already there. It is only a matter of stopping entertaining the dualistic realm, which is designed to keep us engaged. It's like a little maze where we go in and we play this little game of hide and seek, and we have to go around the maze on our heads because it's an inversion. So you
yeah, bouncing on our heads. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I really do love that. And I also like what you said about as more and more people wake up to their true nature, it
Hmm.
becomes easier for all of us to. I mean, I
Yeah.
still have a little judgment like, oh, we all need to wake up. But that's like saying that somehow we're not, So when I think that thought, I
Yes.
realize that's a concept that, is part
Well,
of the
there's quite a
dualistic
good way
nature.
to,
Yeah.
well, really, Pam, um, everyone is fully in their true infinite nature, no matter who the person is, what they've done. Um, it is always simply impersonal, effortless awareness, aware of whatever the activity is. But the human experience is really it's like a movie in a way. So although we can't ever leave our infinite nature, we can have this little drama, which is what we're having, which really is all for entertainment. Because when you can't ever leave your infinite nature, all you can do is pretend that you have,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing, really.
Right. Right.
But
And
the but we can still fully enjoy the movie. And within the movie, there is currently a theme, which is that it's a storyline within the movie, which is that the more people realizing their true infinite nature will actually create the basis for more people to realize their infinite nature more easily. And so that is that's very entertaining, really, and also um, seeing the way that is the way it becomes available. Because with effortless being, you realize that everything of value comes from your infinite nature. With your writing skills, for instance, everything just comes from your infinite nature. It always has. It doesn't come from the human mind. It can be delivered into the human mind, but actually it's coming from your infinite nature always.
Yeah, I've
And
always been aware of that. That what when I write and when I write something meaningful or whatever, it's not me. It's like I call it the muses. I mean, oh, I've called it a million different things, but yes, it's definitely not what my little pea brain comes up with because my little pea brain has anyway. Yeah, so I'm very aware of that, and that's I think a gift of artists. I think you're an artist, right? A
yes,
painter or something.
yes.
I feel like that right there puts you a little closer to that realization because you recognize something beyond, you know,
Well, creative people,
yeah,
and we can be creative in business, we can be creative
true.
in mathematics or science, but it really it's easier with the arts because it's something we're actually knowingly functioning from our infinite nature, um, and and we recognize that it isn't coming from the individual, and it's something we can learn to do more effectively. So I certainly have many more conversations with people who are involved in the arts than people involved, say, in the sciences. Because with the sciences, even though creativity is still at the core, the the intellect is a big part of that. So that's something which just complicates it a little bit. But it's really nice that I'm having more conversations with doctors and academics than I ever have really. So that's a good indicator. A few
Oh, that's
years ago, there were
interesting. Yeah.
very few,
Yeah.
but the yeah, so the game we're involved in is really in the way that your writing flows through you. The same can be said about the way the infinite being can find its way into the dualistic realm. And so it's really completely effortless. It's kind of being available and being attentive to the things which come to you effortlessly rather than making a little plan with the mind. And then you find that things happen. It's like the way your group emerged, for instance, that emerged on a feeling level, probably. So there were maybe some of you which you met up, you realized there was compatibility and the ability to experience collectively and for it to be a well, the experience is amplified in a group. So you could feel that, and so the tendency was to have that experience. But it's those sort of groups are less likely to emerge through planning because the planning is in the mental realm.
Right. I would have quit this group ages ago if we were planning anything because I've never, in fact, I marvel that I stuck with this group for so long because not a joiner, not interested in anything like that. And that this serves me on some level or makes me happy.
Yes.
I keep going and I'm very aware of what a departure it is from my normal MO that I would
Yeah.
be drawn to
Yeah.
continue, participating in that. So
Do you
yeah.
meet physically, Pam? Do you or
Do
do
I
you
what?
meet do you meet physically or do you meet
We
on?
do, we do. And we've
Oh,
been
that's even
doing it for
nicer.
10 years, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know. And it amazes me that we just continue doing it. There's no leader. It's well, spirit, God, whatever, divine nature.
Yes.
That's our leader. It really did come from that.
Yes.
Everything good comes from that. And I, in my life, have been lucky because so many, I always would call them miracles, from the Courts and Miracles terminology, but so
Yeah.
many beautiful things have always come to me. And I've always known that I didn't have to work so hard or fix
Yes.
everything. But I'm really more and more aware of that now. Like fixing, planning,
Mm.
it's a waste of time. It's kind of fun in a way, but
Mm.
it's just not. It's not the good stuff. But again,
No.
that's a judgment too. And what's good, what's not good. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, helping people or making little plans is absolutely fine. It's just understanding the options available, really. But knowing that the the game becomes much more interesting when we realize that everything of value comes from our infinite nature and it comes effortlessly because that's where we can consciously access it and we don't need to try because most people if they're say psychic or they have various abilities, it's when they're not trying that they come through. Whenever we try to implement something, or if people sit down to write a book or a poem or paint, yeah, do painting, it tends to be that if the intention is too strong on the mental level, it tends to block things.
Yes, I see that. I definitely recognize that. Yeah. Um,
So yeah, for you, just really seeing um, how things evolve. What I would say, the dualistic realm has kept you engaged slightly by delivering invitations to make it seem as though awareness needs to be refined a little bit more before you're fully in your true infinite.
yes, I see that. And even this idea, like I'm becoming more and more aware of, I don't need another book. I don't need another teacher. I don't need
Fantastic.
anything. The big
Yeah.
thing, whatever
Yes.
the truth, that is
Yeah.
the teacher, so to speak, or the guy.
That's
What I don't
fantastic.
know. How do you even put it in words? I mean, you're so good at putting it in words without um I don't know. I think when I put it in the words, like especially when I'm talking, like, okay, well, this isn't quite what I mean. But anyway, I appreciate how you say it, how you point to the truth, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you definitely have that ability, and in some ways, the that ability will come forward even more when there's a full acceptance that there is already complete realization that and that you are and only ever have been the infinite timeless being. Because the the way that comes through is it's just when it's like 100% of clarity and just knowing that that's exactly how it is. But the dualistic realm has just kept you entertained in the dualistic realm only to a small percentage. And you could probably recognize that, but it might only be 10%. It might even be less than that. But it's just that it kept you going, well, I'm not sure whether it's quite the real thing yet, Pam. I think you might do a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
But the measure of it is that the seeking has stopped. So you know that it's realization when the seeking stops because the clarity is there where you know there can be no further, there isn't anything to be added and there isn't anything to be found. And I'm sure what you notice is if you do listen to any teachers or watch a little bit of a video or read a little bit of a book, it's your sovereign identity and your sovereignty in terms of your infinite nature that allows you to determine the value of what's being said because you now know, because you always have been fully in your infinite nature, but there is real clarity now. But it enables you to see if there are any little um, shortfalls in what people are saying. And you don't need to do anything about that really, because it's all part, in a way, it's all part of the movie. Because for there to be this experience, there has to be a few false trails and a bit of distraction here and there, and because the movie would be over immediately if everything was revealed immediately.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one thing I noticed, and this I think is, my mind telling me this, but I'll get a little annoyed like when people are seeking, like, oh, well, this is what you need to do. It kind of annoys me. So that is a part of me that obviously isn't fully accepting, or I don't know. I need to apply my infinite nature more to that. But again, the idea of
Well,
applying,
actually, it's your intuition there, Pam, because um, it's you'll probably find that stops happening now because the the feeling that your awareness wasn't quite complete, that there was something maybe that needed to just be there was something a little bit more to be added. So on some level, the people around you will be delivering invitations to make it appear as though that's true. So they would be saying that they would be talking to you as though you are a seeker, and they'd be giving you advice. Oh, you need to do more meditation, or you need to eat a more wholesome diet, or something or other.
right?
But it's really that your infinite nature is giving you a little prompt to say, well, actually, Pam, it's game over. You don't need to feel as though there's anything lacking. And what you find is what appeared to be the outer world, where people come along and irritate you by making suggestions which have no value whatsoever. Then those invitations come to an end because the world is only a mirror, really. It's just mirroring um, what we're holding to be true. And so you'll find that'll come to an end. But it isn't anything that's lacking. It isn't an indicator. The dualistic realm tries to use that as evidence. Well, actually, you're not fully realized yet, are you, Pam? Because you still get riled when these people make these suggestions about seeking.
Just a small annoyance, but I do notice it. Yeah,
So but it's just like it's just part of the entertainment in a way. But firstly, it's knowing that there is nothing lacking. You don't need any advice from anyone because you're already functioning from your sovereign nature and always have been, really. So you trust your own inner knowing. Even if it was Jesus and he came along and tapped you on the shoulder and said, you need to come fishing with me, Pam. You can always say, no, it's okay, because it's your sovereign nature will enable you. It isn't even that you have access to it. It's that you are that. So it's completely direct.
I love that so much. That feels so good. That feels so true. And I am more and more aware of that, which is such a gift. In fact, I'm noticing when an invitation, as you would call it, comes up to go back to the other way. Again, go back to be more cognizant of that part of me than the
Yes.
that it's almost like a blessing. Like I see it sort of as a blessing because it's showing me an area where maybe I did RSVP. Yes, I'm coming in the past.
Yes,
So, you know what I mean? So it's like now so I kind of see even those things as a gift, like showing me,
definitely. Yes.
maybe a little, I don't know. I guess when I say things like this, like a little dust that needs to be removed, but that almost goes back to like, oh, there's still something to get. So I guess I still kind of have that terminology going a little bit, but I really like what you said about starting with the top kosha, the
Yes.
real kosha. Yeah.
Well, we're prior to the koshas, really. The koshas are just filters, but so we just remain as attributeless being, which is a field of infinite potential. And the human realm of experience is just one option. But if we take the example of people who come along and maybe give you advice on how to seek more effectively. That really is it's um it's an invitation, but invitations always have a relative and an absolute context. So the relative aspect is that it's an invitation to try to irritate you into feeling that you don't need that
Yeah,
information. They're giving you information which has no value. And
yeah.
it's designed to activate things like irritability, anger, and those
Or
sort of
they
things.
come to me thinking I might know something. I mean, I get that a lot too. My books
Yes,
were pretty popular, and so people think of me as, oh, she knows something that I need to know.
yes,
But it's
yes.
like, no, I don't. And I don't know. I don't really like that role that
Mm.
sometimes that identity or pedestal or whatever
Yes.
that people sometimes put me on. Like, no, I
No.
that's not who I am. That this is who you are. If you can see that in me,
Yes.
you see it in it's
Well,
yourself. So
definitely. That's really your sovereignty, because from your sovereignty there is only equality, and you just know that. But if there are any kind of invitations, the absolute value is really for there to be integration, because you firstly there can be invitations which don't really resonate with you. But on some level, it's really just like children, that children come and say things which are limited in some way, but it seems quite endearing after a while. So you do so it doesn't irritate you. It's just something which you can just accept it, and you can just smile or just take it really easily.
yeah, yeah. Now I have a question. Like, these invitations from the world or the mind or the ego is what I tend to call it the ego. But
Mm.
where does that come from?
Mm.
I'm just curious.
Yes. Well, I find the Gnostic version is the clearest in that respect, because the in Gnosticism they say that there is the source being, which is a combination of infinite intelligence with infinite love. So that intelligence in Gnosticism is called Christos. So Christos represents kindness, but it's a combination of infinite intelligence with infinite love. But the mythology of Gnosticism says that Sophia, who is the goddess of wisdom, wished to create something of her own. So rather than combining with infinite love, she created the dualistic realm, which is a creation without love. Because if you look at it, and you see the way it's constructed. The religions try to disguise this in a way, but if you look at it for what it is, the components are things like death, sickness, physical impact, loss, suffering, lack of love, cruelty, all the things we're familiar with. And and so the dualistic realm, which is like an energy matrix, is something which is designed to um, get us to energetically invest in it, because it has no energy of its own, because it isn't in alignment with source, with the infinite being, because it's a kind of half creation, because it lacks love and compassion. It's the only way it can derive sustenance is through the energy of the unsuspecting beings who don't know what's going on.
Yes, I get that. And that makes a lot of sense. But, so in the Gnostic, it'd be Sophia decided to do this, and I mean, in the Christian terminology, they might call it the devil or whatever. In Course in Miracles, they'd say the ego.
Yes,
Um, but I guess it's just another word for, I don't know. I just always, that's always been a
sure.
quandary of
Well,
mine.
there
Like,
is.
where did it come from? Why would we ever want to not? live in our true nature. I guess it's kind of interesting. Like I've had a really interesting life. I've traveled over the world. I've done a lot of cool things. And I guess maybe if I was just sitting in infinite nature, all that, I don't know. I mean, I guess I need to do those things in infinite. Anyway, maybe it was just like, I think you've called it before, like a theme park or an amusement park or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. I
Well,
don't know. I just always wondered.
when Sophia, and it's seeing this in the context of it being like a movie and for entertainment ultimately. But when Sophia created the dualistic realm and saw how abhorrent it is, she appointed what's called the demiurge to administer the dualistic realm.
Now, what's that called? The what?
The
The
demiurge, so demi as in half, so
okay,
DEMI, so that's half.
right.
Earth is creator, so the demiurge is a kind of half
Oh,
creator.
demiurge. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah,
So the demiurge is the administrator. So the demiurge is almost like a computer program because it's very intelligent, but it has no love or compassion. But the all-seeing eye, which is on the dollar bill, is the eye of the demiurge.
oh, interesting. Wow. Huh.
So the demiurge is the all-seeing eye symbolizes that the demiurge is watching everything. So it's like a computer which is watching everything, and it's like it's a computerized system of deriving energy from the dualistic realm. But the only beings who can actually contribute energy to the dualistic matrix are the ones who embody the combination of infinite love with infinite intelligence. So it has to be on that basis. But that's what all the invitations are. The invitations are to get us to identify with the personal realm. So we feel I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm depressed, or whatever it is, because it's only in personalization that we can consent to give our energy away. Because firstly, we have to assume the personal mode, and then we have to identify with the invitation. And if we do those things, then our energy is being invested in the dualistic realm, which is why after those sort of low frequency emotions, we usually feel quite drained because our energy is being ciphered off.
That makes a lot of sense. And why it feels so good when the energy's just pouring in like the other day um at the little possibility posse or whatever. And I feel that right now. So I'm very grateful to you too for yeah, that recognition of that always here energy. So yeah.
Well, it's knowing that the dualistic realm is optional because what we can only actually remain in our infinite nature, but the possibility of investing our energy and attention in the dualistic realm can only happen if we identify with the personal realm. But that's the good news. The bad news is that absolutely everything in the dualistic realm is designed to put us into personalization.
Yes, for sure. Everything. Yes, that is so true. Yeah.
But it becomes a lot of fun actually when you see it for what it is, because ultimately it is only entertainment. And then when you realize actually that your true nature is inescapable and it's the dualistic realm which is optional, you can then still have experiences on a personal level, but you're selective. So you only spend time with people and entertain circumstances which feel expansive. You wouldn't do things which put you into mental and emotional turmoil. But so many aspects of this realm. So there are personal invitations. There were invitations which come into the mind because the demiurge is like a supercomputer, and so it it has a file on you, so it knows all of the tendencies. It knows
Yeah,
every it knows the likelihood of particular emotion. So it knows which invitations to deliver to you because they're the ones which you're most likely to take delivery of. They're all personalized, and and but knowing that you see what the game is, so it becomes quite predictable, really.
that's so interesting. And my demiurge, I guess everybody, if everybody has one, that was fed by me, right?
Yes,
It was fed by my energy. That's really
yes.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
That's the ultimate theme of the movie, really, which is the dualistic realm presents itself as though it's the supreme authority, when really it has no power of its own. It's only by deceiving people into investing their energy which can sustain it. And when we stop doing that, it's game over.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know whether this is, I see totally how everything's programmed. Like so much of what, well, our world is all programming. People,
Yeah.
I don't see people recognizing, as you call this, sovereign nature. It's like, okay, and they don't even realize they're programmed. Everything's programmed, and
Yes.
it seems like reality, but it's not.
Mm. Well, it's a
Yeah,
constant
that's yeah,
onslaught, and so there are the invitations which are being delivered into the mind. So they're based on the tendency to take delivery of particular flavors of invitation. There are invitations which come through genetically. So, for instance, our mum and dad had certain tendencies; they were programmed in a particular way. So we have those because we're attuned to those tendencies. So the family tendencies tend to be ones which, take a little bit of working through in a way. Well, not working through, but they're because everything, all of the invitations, they resolve through being guided by the infinite being. Infinite intelligence will, if they need to be brought up so they come into view, so you see them, that's what will happen. It happens in the right sequence. So there is actually no work, but it's just that sometimes these things are brought to our attention so we can just realize that there is a filter there which we don't need anymore. But there
yeah.
are there are collective invitations as well. So the mainstream media, the news, the content of Hollywood, all of these, all of these means are mind programming devices, really.
Yeah, one of the jokes I've used in my books is that I used to be a member of the world's largest terrorist organization because I worked for a newspaper. I was part of the
Oh, good.
media. So I am now doing penance for my time as a terrorist, working for this terrorist organization.
I
But
like
anyway,
that.
yeah,
That's exactly how it is, really.
yeah, yeah. It is entertaining though. I mean, I do, and I totally I get entertained by it sometimes,
Yes.
and I enjoy that. And I kind of look at the people, well, you're taking it way too seriously. But again, that's me judging or thinking they're
Hmm.
taking it too seriously. So that's where I guess I don't want to judge anything ever, ever. Um, so I don't know if that's my. I don't know. I still I guess I judge me when I judge something, but that kind of comes from the Course in
Sure.
Miracles. All judgment I feel like it's a judgment on myself in a sense. But anyway, I don't know. I might be a little confused around some of that.
Something really which might just be worth clarifying regarding the ego, because the ego actually never existed. It's used as a term, and it makes it the dualistic realm likes to blow things up to make it appear as though the ego is something which will take a huge amount to dissolve, and it will require lots of work and effort over a very, very long time. The truth about it is, it doesn't actually exist. It's just that because in every moment, if we take this moment, all you are is the infinite, effortless, timeless, indestructible, attributeless being. That's all you can be. But the way we entertain the dualistic realm is through consenting to personalization. And it's actually the mind programming which is delivered through speech, it's through language, and it's the use of words like I, me, and mine. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which says, to be self realized is to be free of the sense of I, me, and mine. And it's when I read that, first of all, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, I thought, oh, I need to do lots of meditation. And then when I've done all this meditation, then the tendency to be entertaining the ego will dissolve. But it's actually much more simple than that because there is no ego. We only bring it into existence in this very moment. So everyone really, even the most egotistical person, there is no ego. It's just that they're resting as the infinite, pristine, timeless being, which is impersonal. But by delivering lines which include words like I, me, or mine, we create the illusion of there being a character, and that character is the ego. But it is only like it's like delivering lines in a play, because everyone really is remaining as the infinite, impersonal being. But moment it's only a moment to moment decision really, because everyone is remaining as the infinite being, but it's only whether we just remain as that or whether we're activating the sense of personalization by using words like I, me, or mine. But we can use those terms selectively. But there can be an overinvestment in the personal realm, which is where we entertain the conceptual realm much more. And then we're building these self images. Oh, I'm really good at this, and I'm good, and I don't like you, and I like this, and all of the sort of judgments you
Mhm.
mentioned. But they all exist within the play. They all exist within the personal realm because there is that's it's all fictional, really. So anything really which is saying that we need to work on getting rid of the ego is actually a ploy of the dualistic realm to keep us energetically engaged, to make it seem as though there's some work to do. When really it's just seeing the simplicity, which is everyone is the infinite impersonal being, um, until we use words like I, me, or mine, in which case we're animating the fictional character on the stage and making it appear as though that character is real when there never was one.
Right. Well, believe it or not, that my next book that is coming out soon is called The Ego's Playbook. And basically it's like, here's how the ego decided it was going to own us. But it said the ego says in there, I'm not real. I have gotten everything that I am from you. But so anyway, that's it. But it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's written with these little diagrams, like a coach decided, here's how I'm going to come in and I'm going to, own those humans or whatever. So it's kind of funny. It's meant to be funny,
Sure.
but it might be too much emphasis on the ego. But it basically says, hey, I'm not real. My energy comes from you. Without you, I'm nothing. That kind of a thing. So
Yes.
anyway, but it's a humorous little
Fantastic.
thing. So yeah, which is what I was called to do. It's something I've been kind of working on for a while, and it just kept coming back up. It's like, okay, well, it's time to get this thing going. So that's what I did.
Well, really, for you, Pam, it's pretty obvious what you should be doing because it's really what comes effortlessly and naturally to
Mhm.
you. So writing is the medium which just, everything just flows through you in that respect. And so that's you're exactly um, you're really in your dharma in doing that. And it'll just be it's just that your clarity will be shared, and because when it comes from your infinite nature, it has a feeling of lightness and joy, and it inspires people because they feel it. Because it's switching the light of their infinite nature on, and they feel that, and then it becomes it's something which is, really enriching for people.
Yeah. I love that. And I do feel like that's kind of, well, my dharma, I guess if that's what you want to call it. That is sort of the gift I was given or whatever to
Yes,
do that. And I do
yes.
feel like I've been able to turn the light. And that's why it's like, well, what about this part of me? But that's just me looking at a part of me that still takes those invitations to, you know, go there. But I feel like I'm refusing them more and more. And I don't know, it feels good. I feel really
Well, it's knowing that it's a process which has no upper limit. So you are already fully in your infinite nature, but the ability to allow your infinite nature to shine through fully without any um, compromise is something which just becomes easier and easier for you. So it becomes more powerful. A lot of that is to do with recognizing that everything is exactly as it should be. So your experiences through the sequence of experiences that you've had since birth are exactly as they should have been for you to deliver the knowledge you have and to be in service to your infinite nature in the most effective way. So the Course in Miracles is a part of that. Um, being a journalist is part of that. The writing that you're doing, the spiritual knowledge you have, being in the group you have. Um, so all of those things are valid. So it's because the dualistic realm tries to make it seem as though there's something lacking when everything is already fully available. It's only a case of seeing that all the jigsaw puzzle pieces are on the table, and most of the picture's complete. There are only one or two little pieces to put
mhm.
in.
And I love that knowing that I don't have to find those pieces or I don't have to put those pieces in. They will come naturally or they're here, but I will realize them
Yes.
naturally. I love
You're
that.
guided, yeah, from
Yes,
your
I love that. And that's always been what I want is that guidance, that something bigger than me. But well, I guess
yes.
when I say me, that ego part of me, that dualistic part of me that has played a pretty big part of my life. It's no longer as interesting to me. So it's no
Well,
longer.
it's it's recognizing that, well, you could say there are two aspects in one way. So you are already fully the infinite timeless being. You're the totality of existence. Everything is arising within the infinite awareness you've always been. So you can't be anything less than that. But within the within the experience we're having, within the relative aspect of experience, we're experiencing, say, on the human level, where we have certain capabilities and certain forms of technology. So we have the mind, the senses, heightened experiences and things too. But really, the way your infinite nature is integrated into the human experience, it's firstly seeing that you always only remain as the infinite being. But in terms of the human experience, rather than the dualistic version, which is where you take responsibility and credit for everything in the human experience,
Yeah,
you realize nothing. I don't, you probably never felt this, Pam, but it's the knowing that everything is actually being guided from your infinite nature. And when we consciously realize that and accept it, then it can flow with no friction whatsoever because there is no individuality to be maintained. There is only the flow which is coming through you, which is completely effortless, infinitely intelligent, and it has the component of love and compassion. So it'll guide you in a way which is giving you the best opportunities, giving you most clarity, and so your your experience in terms of serving your infinite nature is something which becomes much more effective because there's no level of personalization.
yeah, I like that. Mm.
It's what you've always been doing, really.
just not always being aware of it. So, like you said, hide and seek every now and then, hide and seek.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
fine as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, here's something that I found a little bit interesting. The day that I was able to speak to you happens to be the anniversary of the day my daughter had an aneurysm and left the physical realm.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it's 7 years ago today, and from the dualistic realm, that is like the worst thing that could ever happen to a parent, right? Their only
Yes.
child,
Yes.
suddenly, I mean, suddenly out of, perfectly healthy, beautiful, whatever, just, just left. And so I get a lot of invitations, and I think they're personally created by me. Like society says I should be, on the floor beating, beating, because that's the story. That's the worst thing that could ever happen to a parent. And I've always known, that she's still with me on some level, and some of that, but it is an area where the dualistic realm does vie for my attention,
Yes.
mostly I think because I think, what are people going to think, Like I have this friend, she's 92, and when her husband passed, she was so in joy and love. And she said, and now when she knows someone's going to pass, she said, oh, I'm so excited for them. And you can't really just say that to people because,
Mhm.
what are you crazy?
Yes.
So I don't feel that kind of joy, like, oh, but I do recognize, that she's no longer dealing with the dual realm or whatever. So I don't know. It's just a complicated thing. So I just found it interesting that this happened to be the day that that you could that you
Well,
were
it's a
available.
very
So
interesting
anyway, yeah,
synchronicity.
yeah,
Yeah, because um, actually, to have that experience is really a reflection of your clarity, because the dualistic realm delivers invitations based on what it feels is required to keep you engaged in the dualistic realm. So the dualistic realm must have felt it needs to hit you with the worst possible experience on a human level to keep you engaged in the dualistic realm.
that makes a lot of sense because yeah, I was just flying around. Yeah, I think that was a pretty strong invitation, that I have dealt with in many different ways. But yeah, so
But but the solution is in knowing that neither you nor your daughter ever became the individual.
yes, yes.
You and your daughter have only ever remained as the infinite impersonal timeless being. And it's just that there are these characters appearing in this movie, but they're only fictional characters, really. But what you truly are isn't affected. But in terms of the human experience, what you could say is that to assume this level of disguise, because it's so opposite to what is true, requires a huge amount of contraction. And I can understand what your friend says, in that the celebration, when there's a release from the limitations of this realm, can give that euphoric feeling, because that's the truth of it. Because the dualistic realm is trying to make it seem as though this is life, when actually this is, well, it's hideous in many ways if we look at the content, but it's ultimately an opportunity to integrate every aspect. But knowing that neither you, your daughter, or anyone else, or anything else has ever become removed from their infinite nature, it just makes it really simple. But so what you find you have to do, which it sounds as though you've been doing for a while, is you have to pretend. If you meet certain people and there's an expectation that you behave in a particular way, if you've been subject to certain experiences, or if there are certain things you're discussing, that you have to assume a certain role, because if you spoke your mind, their programming just would be completely destroyed. So it doesn't serve them. There are people when you can, as we're having in this conversation, we can have an open conversation about it. And we know actually your daughter never became the human being. She remained as the infinite being. But um, the thing to know about the koshas is that in the relative aspect, the koshas, when the physical body dies, the four remaining koshas are still there. So even though there can be death of the physical body, the etheric body, the astral body, the causal body, which is the body of wisdom, and the body of bliss are still intact and still available.
Yes, and I'm very much aware of that. And I feel like in some ways, part of my karma or dharma or whatever was I've helped a lot of people, or a lot of people to kind of, because a lot of people lose children. I mean, it's a very common thing, much more common than we think. Well, now I know,
Yes.
but I feel like I've been able to somehow, I don't know, encourage people, or maybe that's not the right word, but just sort of see a different
Yes.
story behind the dominant paradigm. The dominant paradigm
Yes.
tells
The
us a lot
dominant
of things, and
power.
we are
Yes.
definitely invested in this paradigm, but it's
Yes.
not the only. Well, it's not even true, but it's very dominant. It's
Well,
very
the dominant paradigm is the paradigm of the demiurge.
Yeah, exactly. That's so
So
funny
all
that
of
that's
the
the picture on the dollar bill. Oh my gosh.
so all of that is actually designed to keep us engaged in the dualistic realm. So everything, like you watch the news. Oh, these terrible things have happened, and I mean, when you see it more deeply, you realize that everything is actually in service to the demiurge. So whether it's the education system, the media, the financial system, the legal system, the health system, everything is really in service to the demiurge in the dualistic realm. And when you know that, you can begin to see through it, and you can see that most of the conventional responses to things are designed to serve the demiurge. And when you break it down, when you think of it, because somebody said to me one night, they said, well, the thing with human, this guy, he was drunk at the time, but he said, the thing with the human experience, he says, I could do a better job of designing something when I'm drunk than what this experience is. And I found that hilarious because it's so true. Because
Yeah.
if you look at it, what you see is somebody has sat down and said, well, what's the most devastating kind of structure we can create? So let's create all these illusory things like death, sickness, physical impact, loss, separation. So, time is a big part of that, because really there is no time. But
Yeah.
if we create the illusion of this thing called time, then there's separation, there's the past, there's regret, there's doubt, there's blame and guilt, and but all of these components, they're all by design. They're all in service to the demiurge. They're all in service to the dualistic energy harvesting system, which ultimately is a movie. So it's seeing those two aspects to it. It ultimately is Maya. It isn't real. But when you begin to see the way it's structured, you can see, because I remember as a child, I grew up in an Anglican family, and I remember singing a hymn which was All Things Bright and Beautiful. And
Hmm.
I remember looking around thinking, well, hang on, where's that then?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to overcome a lot of things. I was taught being a Methodist minister's daughter, and
Yes,
being drugged to church, and it was in some ways a really great childhood, but
yes,
it definitely had a very restricted paradigm on how
yes.
sin, just certain things that
Mm.
didn't always make sense to me,
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe that's why I was always like going off and, okay, do I want to come back? Okay, I'll be here. That kind of thing I used to do as a young child. But anyway, yeah, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all of it, really.
Well, you can see the value of all of it, really,
Yeah.
because having that kind of childhood, because most religions, they're a sort of truth and lie sandwich. So you have,
Yeah.
you know, so the truth in Methodism is that God is love, and and being kind to people, and for there to be love and compassion. All of those values are completely true. But all the other aspect, which is to do with the idea of sin and guilt, and that's all in service to the demiurge, and that's all reinforcing the personal mode of experience. So ultimately, if it's a truth and lie sandwich, ultimately it is only really serving the demiurge. But you can, from realization, see the value that was in it in terms of what was true. But the when personalization and the idea of personal sin is being promoted, you realize it can only serve the demiurge, because it's conditioning us to accept a very limited version of what we are, and that we have to try to escape that through effort and through godliness and purity and all those things, when really that's just to keep us engaged energetically.
Yeah, it's the big irony, isn't it, that the so many religions the exact opposite. They've served, as you said, the demiurge completely. They lead us away from
Yes,
recognizing truth. I love that description of truth in a light sandwich. That is because there is truth in in there.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
if
got
it
a
was
pretty
all
big
lies,
bread
we
roll
wouldn't.
around it. Yeah. Yeah.
There's quite an interesting presentation on Gnosticism. Um, the guy's name is Martin Colburn. This came as a kind of synchronicity, because I have a friend who knows the person who put on this meeting, but he's an English. The recording is actually on YouTube, and I think you would enjoy watching it. Um, the guy's name is Martin Colburn, and the title is The Gnostic Counterfeit Spirit, because the demiurge is a counterfeit spirit. It's pretending to be God when really it isn't.
Oh, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds interesting.
So everything to do with worship is actually part of the energy harvesting system, because we're giving our energy to whatever it is we're worshiping. Um, because, as you know, intuitively, as you mentioned earlier, you knew as a child that everything was based on equality. You can't have
Always.
unity and hierarchy.
Hmm. Yes.
But yeah, it's funny really how things evolve, because initially, what say when I did the TV interviews 20 years ago, nearly now, um, it was very much to do with non-duality and quite a conventional sort of presentation of that. But more and more, um, there's an understanding of the energetic aspects of the dualistic realm, because you can you can actually realize your true nature and continue to be in service to the dualistic realm. And quite a few non-duality teachers are still on that level, because they're saying, well, we have to work through the shadow self and all these kind of things, which is actually, the shadow self is the domain of the demiurge.
I agree. But I get a lot of shit for saying things like that, for because yeah, a lot of people want those steps. They want
Hmm.
that linear timeline. I mean, that is just such a an appeal
Yes.
that people want. I mean, and that's what I'm saying, but that kind of annoys me a little bit. When I totally that is yeah, so true. So yeah.
Well, it's your intuition which sees through that, Pam. But the conditioning is so strong in the human realm, the way we've been programmed from birth into the idea that things like planning, effort, achieving things in time, competing with others, demonstrating how clever we are, all of those things, they're pretty deeply um, programmed. All the competitive aspects of education, the way, we're sort of um, marked from top to bottom. People, they have end of year exams, but it's all the idea, that somebody is number one and somebody's number 50,
Yeah,
which isn't a great system, really.
yeah. And it's such a beautiful thing to learn. But again, it's been turned into this thing where it's not
Yes.
fun. Yeah, it is just shocking how prevalent the demiurge is. I mean, it is just everywhere. I see it in everything, So, yeah. That's an interesting way. Yeah, I like that, the demiurge. I'm going to think about that a little bit.
Well,
Or,
there is some material um, on the internet. There are some videos on YouTube, but you have to use your own discernment, really. But the Martin Colburn one is a pretty bare version because it explains how the dualistic realm came into being. It explains how the the structure exists and the way the hierarchy exists and the way the hierarchy doesn't really want to relinquish control, but that it is. And he also explains how there are certain beings who have volunteered into this realm. And it's all in the movie. It is only a movie, but
Mhm.
you're definitely one of those volunteers. You're not innately a three-dimensional entity. You're definitely in service to the infinite being. That's your purpose for volunteering to have this experience. And the the degree of power that you have is inversely demonstrated by the way the dualistic realm has given you the most extreme human experience you can ever have. But
Yeah.
you should take credit for that, really.
Well, the dualistic realm also gave me a really fun, grateful lot. I mean, so many things.
Yes.
And, to separate that out isn't
Yes.
quite right,
No. No.
but
Well,
certainly,
really, the reason your life is fun and light is because largely throughout your life, you've actually functioned from your infinite nature without recognizing that that's what it is. The lightness, the joy, the expansion, that is all because the dualistic realm never really fully took hold with you.
yeah, I always sort of looked at the paradigm. Not that I didn't participate, but I definitely always saw it as not quite right, and I didn't participate in the way a lot of people do. I mean, I went to school, I got an education, I got a job, but I very quickly started doing my own thing. And I don't know, I just
Yes.
I could see it pretty early on. So yeah.
When did you start looking at spiritual things, Pam?
Well, I think again, I grew up in a church family, but as soon as I went off to university, I kind of gave up, the way that I
Yes.
was raised. But I was into Course in Miracles fairly early on, and I liked metaphysics, and I always was sort of interested in quantum physics, about how we start seeing something and then we concrete it into something that isn't sort of.
Yes.
So I've always had kind of an interest in that sort of thing. So I would say maybe always, really.
Yes.
I don't know that I ever did. But I
Well,
guess it
you had
felt like I
those.
was leaving spirituality and that I was leaving my religion, but I didn't call myself an atheist or agnostic or
No.
anything. I just didn't embrace those parts of it that didn't feel right to me. Yeah.
And you did have those early experiences as a child, didn't you? So
Yes.
they were direct, really, rather than relating to any kind of religion or philosophy.
Right. And I've never told anybody about that until recently. I've mentioned that because I just thought that's just so weird. It doesn't really fit into, but now as I'm learning more about, the kind of stuff you talk about and everything, it's like, okay, well, that does sort of fit in. But I used to think, no, that's people won't understand that. It doesn't make sense. And I don't know. So, but yes, I'm very grateful for those. And I don't know, grateful for everything, really.
Well, wonderful. And you've lots to give, and just being effortlessly in service to one's infinite nature is the best game in town, really.
Yes, it is. And I thank you so much for all you're doing to point us to the way. I mean, truly, that is just a beautiful, beautiful service you're doing. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. So, yeah.